All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Willington Board of Education Special Meeting Budget Workshop number 3. Today is January 31st, 2024, and it is 6 p.m. We are calling the meeting to order at this time. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. You're welcome to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we are prepared for present to speak. Speakers will be recognized by the chairwoman and identify themselves by name and address. You will proceed with your comments. The total time allotted for present to speak shall not exceed 20 minutes and is at the discretion of the board. That is part of our policy 9325. So is there anybody, nobody is sitting in these chairs. Is there anybody online who had something that they wanted to share or say? I think that would just be you, Melissa. Looks like she's good to go. Okay.
Nice.
Did you want to say something?
No, I'm just gonna listen. That's all. I think it's important. I think it's important now that I'm sitting on the Board of Finance that I should know what's going on a little bit.
Agree. Thank you for taking the time to join us. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm just gonna listen.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. So far we have discussed programs 1 through 7 and 10. Boy, that sounds like we've done some really good work, doesn't it? When you put it that way. And so at this time, we have opportunity for members to ask questions, review anything, and see if Mr. Stevens had anything to update or add. So I did not have any further questions on any of those programs. Did I? John, did you have anything?
I'm good. I asked all my questions last time, but thank you.
All right, great. Bill, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, let's see, that's Tracy.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I didn't put that
No
over.
problem. There she is. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome aboard. No problem. Glad to have you. All right.
So I can give you an update, on a few things. One, so I sent you an email and said, we can get under a certain number. And literally as, 4:15 today, I'll call it, it changed again in a good way. So I have a center school teacher who is retiring. And was interested in, wasn't planning on retiring, was interested, a little bit, Mr. Marshall, was interested in looking at, like a para position or something like that. And had a conversation, and this person has put in their letter of resignation, official today. It is obviously till at the end of the year. And then they are gonna take the staff support position at Hall School.
Oh.
We will have a certified teacher in that position, which is amazing. Obviously, what I had budgeted, was a newbie, lower per, amounts. But we're seeing savings in the teacher salary because the teacher salary comes down. So it's about a $20,000 savings. I'm not gonna say the person because I wanna let that person break the news to the school. I just don't feel like that's right for me to do, but it is signed. The only caveat to that, and I wrote this in my letter back to her, is that if the Board of Ed has to cut that position, the staff support specialist position, because it's the Board of Finance cuts dollars and we have to cut lots of money and that position goes, I would allow her to withdraw her resignation and she would remain as a teacher. So the number that we're putting forward is like a little bit of a yo-yo if that change occurs, if that makes sense. But to save $20,000 and to have a certified person in that position and a position that we struggle to fill, 100% great. That change brings the budget down to 5.15. Okay. Second item, we have done lots and lots and lots of work with Novus to get cyber insurance. And we are finally getting quotes in. And we had budgeted a ballpark number, what we were told to budget around, and the number came in, the highest number came in $4,700. Lower than what we had budgeted. So it may come down a little bit more depending on, as we review the quotes, we're supposed to meet, I think, tomorrow or Friday. What we sign off on, and then we'll do a little increase, but we can reduce the budget by $4,700. That is in a program tonight. And that would bring the budget down to 5.10, and as I said, like, this is ongoing. There are two items, I told you last time, I do not like putting offsetting items that are going to be recurring, so because it's gonna come back the following year. Hey Sam, I put in the budget for the Bridges program and the Math Tech Fluency Playground. It's about $14,000, and after going through our ESSER funds, we can definitely purchase those with our ESSER funds, which would then just flat out remove them. I'm not gonna do that as an offset in the budget, just gonna remove it. That brings the budget down to a 494. A 494 is about a $452,000 increase, 452. And I'm just gonna say, remember that special ed program that we did last time, special ed program is a $300,000 increase this year. So that bubble that is out of your control, it is legal, you have to pay the special ed costs. It is outplacements, it's clearly in your budget. Without those, you're at like a 1.7. So to say that you have a really good budget minus one program, and again, this is a needs-based budget, that's including special ed, that's a need. That's where you land with a 494. So the last piece that I'll tell you that is in the works is insurance. I pressed our broker since our last meeting and said, you had told us we were at a 0. You had mentioned there's a chance, a slim chance it could be better than that, which would be a decrease. Which never happens. Never happens. I emailed and asked. They are meeting on Friday. It was supposed to be earlier, but they're meeting on Friday. There's a chance our insurance is gonna go down. And so if we get a decrease in the insurance, it would bring the budget down for. It could be $5,000, it could be 10,000, it could be more. It obviously depends on our census still, but it's on the premium side of it, so it's what we pay. So if we were to come down another %, we'll take it. So there's potential that could creep down a little bit more, but that's what happens in budget season, as we get these numbers in. That would be good news. So those are the really changes. What I would plan to do is, based upon your conversation last time and what happens tonight in budget talks, and I will have a conversation with Arthur one-on-one at some point. I will make sure that, I get his feedback before, and then we can determine if we need that hour before our next meeting or not. And I will give you brand new pages for the programs that are impacted for what I just discussed, but also if you have additional things that you want to change, I would adjust those programs as well and then give you new copies of them. So you have a 100% new copy of what we need approved. Does that make sense? So those are my changes. That's based upon the prior programs and literally hot off the press 2 hours ago.
Bill, you said something important there, I think, without the special ed money in there, you said it was only a 1% increase?
So it's, the special ed program is a 3.24% overall increase, the overall budget increase.
Yeah.
And we're at a 4.94.
Without the
So
mandatory money in there, just a general increase. You said it was a 1% of some sort?
1.7.
So it's, yeah, we don't have a choice on the special ed, so this other stuff is only a 1.7. That's really good, I think.
I think so too, but it's still, we'll see what happens, but. That's the legal portion of this, that's the understanding that we have to fund special education, you don't have a choice in it. So if you're gonna change something, it's not gonna be on that 3.24%. It's going to be on the 1.7 side, or the remainder of the programs And there are things that you're not, again, if you're gonna change this budget by significant dollars, it's people. It's not supplies, it's people.
I just have a question. We were talking about budgets over maybe it was the state or at least the region. And they were all very high. We were actually kind of in the middle, I think, or high.
We're now right in the middle where others were the averages.
Well, right before, but did that also include, I'm assuming that also included special ed if they had special ed increases, so you couldn't parse that out, because I feel like that.
Now,
Okay,
they just put their overall number in. There is a spot where they can put comments in, and typically when you see comments, it's either about special education, but rarely. It's more about insurance. Like I know someone wrote in there, we have a 15% increase on our premium. That's huge money. You get a district that's, 3 times the size of us, if they have 1,000 kids, and you're talking about staff, and you have a 15% increase, that is huge money, huge money.
Okay. So we'll hear back from you about that early meeting.
Yeah, so I just wanted, I think just because of where Arthur's at this point, I haven't connected with him. I wanna make sure, he has a chance to watch the videos, that I can answer any of his questions, and that in front of the board, he has an opportunity to, if there's something that he did want to adjust, then you should really have that meeting. That would be my recommendation. I think it's the right thing to do, unless it's something that he feels is small and you could do it as part of your regular meeting. On that same date. The thing what I would do, and I say something small, I would basically have those numbers already crunched. And so if he makes that a presentation, said I'd like this to add this or remove this, then I can just put those numbers right in front of you, and you can just go, okay, we're gonna recommend this amount of money.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so we have 2 more programs to discuss. We will start with program 8, which is operations and maintenance. That includes custodial and maintenance services and also supporting CIP project list items.
Yeah, so
I
it's
apologize.
up to you.
So yes, Mr. Martin.
I apologize for missing present speak, but I did have something, I'd like to say related to program eight, if you'd allow. I don't know.
Okay, sure.
I appreciate that. So James Marshall, Richard Hill Road, I'm here today. I appreciate all the work and effort that you guys have put into really coming up with a need-based budget. Having reviewed, having been a part of the review of the Board of Finance last year, Phil, I understand how tight this is and how good a job you do at really trying to whittle this down. I'm here basically today, because I know it's been discussed previously, but I know it's not captured in program 8 currently, to lobby for consideration of, again, a facilities and operations manager role, particularly looking forward to the needs of the district related to the school programs, the school buildings and their renovations, and the arduous effort that's going to happen over the coming years as this community hopefully rallies to implement some of the necessary changes. It's one of those things. I understand that there are things outside of your control for budget increases, and you're looking to whittle that down, as I know Phil has talked about today already. But I'd argue this is an important role moving forward for both this town, and it's also something that the town, I know we share a lot of resources potentially, that the town could look at as a shared opportunity as well. But I think it's important, it really is an important position, both long-term, that could also help to offset costs in the long term, to make that kind of beneficial, looking at how to maintain the integrity of these buildings, to avoid delays of programs for pipes bursting, just general maintenance, understanding how systems are maintained. I think it's really important, and I also think that if you don't include it, it can't be discussed, moving forward. It can't be debated as a town. I think the selectmen should be doing something similar as well, but I urge you, even though I know, you're trying to be as tight as possible, 1.7 is low. For a non-essential needs, to include it so that it can at least start a discussion with the town, because it is something you've recognized as a potential need previously in some of your meetings. I know there was discussion when I was sending a letter to the Board of Selectmen, pursuing it, so I just urge you to consider it. because I really think it is something as this community looks to address some of the very long-term and significant issues, that it would be much more of a benefit than a detriment in the long term. So I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate you thanking. I thank you for letting me take the time.
Thanks for your 2 cents and important information for us. Yeah. Okay, so
Good.
we're gonna keep that in mind.
All right, so
Proceed
program
here.
8 does not have the facilities manager in it. I had mentioned that the first night that this didn't have the curriculum director or facilities manager in it. This is the program that has the custodians and the maintenance services for center and hall. You have a portion of a secretary at Hall School that's coded off to this. He's responsible for doing all of the POs for anything maintenance related for both buildings. That's what the 0.15 is. You have one maintenance custodian at each school. They both receive a stipend, and that is for additional after-hour stuff to meet with vendors, things like that. So they do the regular hours, and then they also do outside of their hours. So when, vendors come at 3:30 and it's after their hours, the person has to be there. So that's what they do. We have 2 custodians, as you can see, at, or 3 total, but there's 2 at Hall School at night, second shift, and then there's 1 at center school. So there's 3 basically cleaning in the district in the evenings. You can see the salaries that are there, that match their time and where they are in the steps in the contract. And you can see that I did adjust the summer custodian rates. It more closely aligns with what we've done the last couple years. We went back and looked at hours and needs, and I increased that because it more closely matches where we should be. So that's the increase in the summer custodian. The property insurance, Kerma, that is actually also included, is your cyber is in that. So that's where that money would come down a little bit. But there's a slight increase in that. And then the supplies, despite us, we have changed one of our vendors and gotten much better deals from where we were. These are all the supplies for the district. So paper towels, toilet paper, tissues, mops, any of the cleaning chemicals, gloves, soap, paint, all that stuff. It still's gone up, even though we decreased or we changed vendors and the cost has come down for some of those items. There's still an increase because of just the number of supplies and if we hadn't changed vendors, that'd probably be closer to 32. So it's one of the reasons we looked at it. And then we pay custodial travel when they go to pick up gas to the snow blower or the generator, or they're picking something up at the local hardware store. There's we pay our IRS mileage basically to them. And remember that MCOR, our preventative maintenance program, is not in this program 8. That is woven into programs 1 and 2. So pretty straightforward operations and maintenance. All of your think about your anything to do like elevator maintenance, that's in the actual program 2, program 1, center school, Hall School. This is just basically your cleaning that was set out. Summer cleaning, your supplies, and your property insurance. Questions about program 8?
Now, if we
So-
want to, sorry, go ahead.
You first, John, go ahead.
Thank you. So if we wanted to look at and expand what Mr. Marshall was talking about and actually just run the numbers, we would have to put in the whole salary because we haven't spoken at all with the town. Really, right?
So I did email the first selectman. I have not heard back, and I think rightfully it's pretty fair. He's in a new job, trying to figure things out in budget season.
Mhm.
So I can check in with him. I had not followed through on that beyond my communication. What I will tell you is you can probably easily add $110,000 to this budget if you add in a facilities director at 80,000. Which may or may not be an appropriate number. And family benefits would be about 27, so call it 30, add in, you'd be adding about $110,000 to this budget.
Right.
It seems like that would be a shared position, though. I think when we talked about last year possibly doing a whole town facility study, so that we look at all of the facilities and.
That's up to this board. You determine whether you wanna share that service or not. If they say no, you would put the full amount in if you wanted it. If you just said it's too much, you know, I mean, you're at a 494, you basically go up to probably 6-1.
I think that we would be better off working with the town and maybe setting up a separate fund. I'm sure they don't want it in their budget
It
either.
has to be.
It has to, we couldn't have.
Yeah, so if you split it, you would budget, if it was a 50-50 split, they would budget for 55, we would budget for 55. So Novus is the same type, and you'll see that in program 9 next. Novus is set up the same way. So our managed support for Novus is a shared contract between the town and us. Managed support 7 days a week, 5 days a week, we have a person on site. We pay 110, they pay the other portion of it. It's about, I think it's a 50-50 split, something like that. It's around 220 total. If you were to get a good IT person on site with benefits, you're at 100. So 2 people, you have the army of Novus behind you versus, you know, just a 2-person job. So that's how that position is shared. I call it position, it's a service, but it's a position in the all, you know, since the way it's set up. So you would just budget for 55, I think. It could be more than that.
Now, another idea is to use some of our 1 million, which is designated to repair the schools. So it seems to me that would be a good way to spend that money, and that would possibly help better spend the rest of the money.
I think it's for repairs. I think that, I mean, it'd have to go through town approval. I don't know, the million will go fast.
I know, but maybe
And
that,
it's recurring too, so it's, you know. It becomes an annual expense. You could do, if you could find someone that was willing to do a 3-year contract, kind of like we did with Dr. Conlon, right? I wrote a 3-year contract with her, it was grant funded. She knew that the job was up in 3 years. You might get someone that would be interested in doing something like that. To say, hey, we have a 3-year commitment for all of the projects that we're pulling together. And the other options you talked about, we're just doing, a block of funding for QA&M for support, or you know, Colliers for support. I've not talked to them about that, or, you know, if that's something they'd be interested in, but that would be the type of thing to do as well.
and that might be a good idea, because that's kind of like the Novus approach, where you're getting a whole team.
It is, and you're paying, the thing is that you'd have to put out there for them to bid on it. Novus bid on that, you know what you're getting for services. You could do the block approaches, you know, kind of like a retainer for your attorney. So we put $10,000 into our retainer, I call her when I need her, right? And so if I don't call her for 3 months, nothing comes off that. Or the second approach is you pay $50,000 for a service that anytime you're gonna do an RFP, you call a vendor and they help you write the RFP, they help you do all of the oversight of the project. They would wanna know what those projects are. And that's where you know, you could say it's for HVAC, it's for roofs, it's for, you know, these 5 things.
And that's more what we're doing now, is we're
You're
giving services as needed.
correct. But you would set it up just like you could write a contract, just like you do for Novus, but you'd have to be specific in your RFP to say, it's only for these projects. Or you hire your own facilities manager. I mean, there's all costs money.
So will you continue the conversation?
I will follow through and
Let's start
see
the
if
conversation with the first selectman.
Yes, I can go and see him tomorrow and just see if he has any updates. I don't know where he's at with his budget or if anything's in there. I did ask if they had any funds in their budget for a facilities director.
Thank you.
Did you wanna? Yeah, but I forgot what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's my fault for forgetting. I agree, though. I feel like doing this without, considering that we've already reached out to, the Board of Selectmen, adding this into our budget with the potential of it just getting cut because it's easier, would be kind of frustrating. So, I mean, I think it's obviously a need, but we've talked a lot about, someone else mentioned this too, we've talked a lot about town-wide, we need an approach where we take care of our structures, our buildings, and, I feel like if we just add one because we want one, I would love to do that as a board of education because we need them in our school, there's no doubt. But I feel like we also need town-wide collaboration. And I would like to hear back from at least the Board of Selectmen about, you know, their interest in it. And if they don't want to pursue it, then, you know, I would love to have that conversation. It's my,
I can find out tomorrow and whatever they say, I'll just email you and put down on it.
Give the town a chance to prioritize, you know, if we're looking at the whole big picture, the
Yeah.
town could decide.
Samantha, what you wanna?
It's kind of a comment about the facility manager, but it's also a sidestep question first. Just since I'm newer to this whole process,
Mhm.
so. I understand that you had said program 2 has our like MCOR contract in it,
It does.
but, correct me if I'm wrong, do we not budget for any unforeseen maintenance, or are we solely relying on CIP? You understand what I'm trying to say? Like, it doesn't seem like we have any money in here, like, this seems all like custodial and supplies for custodial, but it doesn't seem like we have any fluff in here for
You know,
any maintenance at all.
so
And you keep going back and forth like, well, we have it in program 2, but we don't really have it in program 2 because we have kind of an as needed,
it does
very
fall in this.
affordable contract with MCOR. I don't see any amounts of money, you know what I mean? And so us as a town, the majority of the town who voted made a decision not to go with a new school.
Mhm.
So our choice that is left is to maintain what we have. And we keep wanting to, but now again, we're getting caught up in the cycle of not wanting to increase those taxes that smaller amount to, you understand what I just feel like we're getting caught up in the same routine of, well, you know, let's try to get under 5. Well, we're just perpetuating our issue
The
further
major-
down the road.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have to come up with a decision and advocate for it, whether even, I mean, even. There's nothing in here for any type of maintenance at all, let alone a facility director. There's nothing in here, you know what I'm trying to say? So I
They
don't
take it
understand
out of
how the
their supplies.
process works.
They do, they take some out of their supplies and some of it comes out of this building maintenance line. That's in program 1 and program 2, so it's piddlings.
Yeah, it really is,
Because the majority of things that need to happen are over $10,000.
right?
Um,
So that's my question is that, I mean, we can't, we don't have a crystal ball like someone had said before, but like,
Right.
how do we is that? Cause I honestly haven't paid attention. I don't know. I'm very naive to the process. I'm naive to our habits. Like, if something happens, do we go, is that what the $1 million in CIP is for? It's like, oh, hey, this
when
happened.
something comes up.
We didn't know, like, we want to take some money from that.
Right now, the things that have typically come up could fall under the $20,000 plumbing thing, cause that's typically what it's been. The things that we are repairing, the things that come up with a boiler, you know, like this year was a good example. We had a boiler not pass inspection at Hall School and had to pay $4,600 to get it fixed. You pull it out of your building maintenance fund, that's here, it's in that dollar amount, so something, that's where I balance across all programs.
Right,
So even though a program, so this program 8 total, right, is $353,803. Well, this program might be overspent at the end of the year, we have a terrible year with supplies, something happens, or
right,
paper goes up and you spend a fortune. I'm balancing all the programs, so hey, we didn't use the placeholder for insurance this year, I'm gonna transfer some money here. You
right.
do that at the end of the year, but your question is a good one, is there money a reasonable amount of money is what I'm gonna call it.
Yes.
Set aside in the budget for repairs. No.
How do we
There's a
make
very
any headway with
small-
anything?
It's gotta go through, honestly, I mean, my honest answer is, it's gotta go through CIP. That's
But they,
where the
you
majority of
told us in
things.
one of the last meetings that they told us to take some of our projects off.
Paint, that was computers, that's what they were looking at. The things that they wanted us to take off were, they didn't want computers in CIP anymore, they didn't want paint in anymore, they didn't want rugs in anymore.
But I mean, for example, like.
So I
the
budget for-
Tiles or whatever, we have to apply that as a project in
Mhm.
CIP.
And most of your ceiling tiles, so like, I just bought a case of ceiling tiles, it was $500 for one case,
Right,
we eat that.
yeah,
It comes out of our supply money. If I was gonna try and do a full classroom or a hallway, we don't have money for that, that's gonna be money that's gonna come out of CIP. And CIP is typically, $10,000 plus. And it's gotta last a certain number of years. Which is why the $1 million is so critical. And. It's a little bit of a side note, but, the $1 million is not a lot of money, and I don't want to make that sounding like condescending. It is going to cover the cost of the roofs, so when something breaks. That $1 million in my eyes is already spent. If it were 5 million, you could do what you're saying, you could fix the roof, you could do the ventilation, maybe. You could do the solar, and when something broke, go and take care of it. But it's not within your dollars for your budget. My buffer is in, when you look at that program too. When you see an increase, because most of the time, this right here. We factor in a certain percentage increase in those contracts. Sometimes they come in higher, sometimes they stay the same. And I use those,
that for 43.
you're right, thank you. I take those
It's
little
really, you know what I
buffers.
mean, I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah, I take those little buffers and that's how I fix things. And each year I've managed it, what's that?
Which is example.
I very much appreciate your questions and comments right now because I am seeing you understand. How we're
And-
stuck,
There's no
Yeah.
buffer.
we're here
Yeah,
and we know this is not acceptable. And
Right,
every day, there's a new leaky thing here and the preschool's flooded again and the chimney's falling down and whatever. And still, our elementary school is not ADA compliant.
right.
Still, like amongst many problems, you have all these little things. So we can spend forever staying here and trying to plug holes. But that does not get us anywhere. It doesn't help anything. And that's what we've been trying to do with the best that we can, with the funds that we have for this period of time. But I think there are several folks who agree that it's time to let's try something different to move forward.
I will tell you, you just came up with our unit, right?
Yeah.
So I have a quote. One of the things that we discovered was the grates on the outside of the building on these two specific rooms that have frozen. You can clearly see that someone at some point in time removed them. And the way they put them back was not so high quality. I would call it a duct tape approach. I got a quote from a vendor to remove those, to inspect them, to compare that to another grate that was not tampered with, to pull that grate off and compare and see if something's missing. Is that the reason why these two specifically are freezing? It was over $1,000. Because that's what you have to pay to determine some of these things. Insurance is not gonna cover that. So I have a conversation with Matt Jensen today at Center School and go, when are we gonna take the grades off? Because it looks like it's gonna be you and I. Because I don't wanna budget for $1,400 to have somebody come in, because you're paying their hourly rate, and they're worth that amount when it's something that's real specific. If it's just eyeballing something, I can't fix it, but I surely can look and go, well, that's a lot different than that. And then I can go, now I need to hire the professional to fix it. So we do that all the time.
Right.
All the time.
My question, I guess my second half of my question is, have we been using CIP like they want us to, and are they fulfilling their end?
Yes, they
Projects
only
that
have
are-
had so much money, they had $550,000 for a lot of years, that budget number didn't change. And right before COVID hit, I was trying to push, like, you need to start thinking about a different approach, because you are never going to fix with the route you're on right now. And
Right.
Donna and I just had this conversation the other day. I'm running up the CIP tonight to see if I can speak, because I put together just your first year items, and we talked about you need about $1.5 million minimum. They need to understand that that covers like this amount of your projects.
Right.
There's no other buffer that I can run to do those things, so it's challenging.
I mean, it's going to take time to catch up and then get
Right,
ahead.
right.
If ever.
Right.
But the thing is that it's frustrating to see that, okay, like I said, 75% of the town came out and voted. That's already said and done. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse with that. But now, well, this is what we have to do now.
Yeah.
Because we can't just not do anything.
It should come out
I
of
mean, we can't keep using the excuse that we have to keep taxes low, because we're either going to slowly increment it over time, which is what maintaining is going to do, or not, I don't wanna say maintaining, but fixing,
Trying to
getting up
catch
to
up.
code, you know what I mean, catching up of all
Yeah.
these years of compounding
problems.
neglect perhaps.
Yeah,
Or, I mean, the thing I think that was a turnoff for the school was it was a big jump. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, we're not doing a big jump right away. It's going to slowly over time. Same thing with our roads. And I'm digressing, but we paid all that money for that data for the roads and they still have yet to, let's just keep doing chip seal. I mean, it's stupid.
they don't,
Why-
they don't have the
You know what I
funding for it.
mean? It's,
Yeah.
you can't do it. We paid for the facility study from the SBC. Or, I know it's separate things. I'm probably convoluting everything together, but it's like, we have the data for the most part that we need. And now we're just, well, we have to stay under 5. Well, why?
So
know
I'm
what I
keeping
mean?
this under 5. The big money for the fixes you're talking about is the 1.5 million that you voted on already. That's where you're truly gonna get the money to fix and not repair.
Right.
So that's my honest answer. Like, when a pipe breaks, I'm fixing this much of pipe,
Yeah.
as opposed to replace, I'm fixing this much of it.
And I guess to
Replacing.
circle back to James's thing is like a facilities manager would look at the best way to do that and actually be like, okay, this is done, let's move on to the next.
Yeah, and QA&M is
In an
supposed to do
organized
some of
way.
that for us. They're supposed to try to put it together. We're supposed to have some of that report, at your February meeting. So I expect that there'll be some sort of presentation there. I don't know what it's gonna look like. They should have some sort of layout of, this is how you do it over the next year, may catch up. Because the rate we're on right now, you're never gonna catch up.
Right.
There's a reason Village Hill, excuse me, has been on CIP for 30 years.
Right.
I just have a question, well, I don't know if it's a question or a comment. I appreciate, certainly, Sam, your input as far as, keeping it real. I think you're 100% correct. The vote was the vote. We now have to deal with what the fallout is from that. Our job as board is to do the best thing, advocate for the students, and what we feel is the best learning environment and the best supports, et cetera. It feels a little right now like we're doing it in, pardon the language, a half-assed way. Like all of the stuff that you were talking about, the stuff that we have just been talking about is 100% necessary. And I feel like there's been various boards that have talked about it in various iterations throughout the time that I've been here, which admittedly is very small. I would like to put on the table, I hope this is not completely ludicrous, some kind of like what do we call the groups that are like a subcommittee? Like a
Ad hoc.
strategic planning or something like that, where a small group of us looks at this stuff and then brings it back to the rest of the board so that we can say when we present budgets, because my going forward presenting this budget would be, it's so easy for someone who's reviewing the budget to say, nope, 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 nope. It's a lot harder to do that if we've done our legwork and have a, almost a platform, I feel like, and it comes from wanting to do the right thing for the schools and the kids and long-term planning, so that we're not in this position 5 years later saying, well, we should have done that in 2000, whatever this year is, 20, whatever.
Your big start though is QA&M. You can't budget or plan until you have that, the point of that whole study is to have the expert tell you, this is what you need to do. If you wanna make a difference and you wanna make the changes, here are recommendations. And here are the ways that you can fund them. If you don't fund them, you're gonna be in the same boat you're gonna be in.
Yeah.
So it just, timing wise for the budget, it doesn't line up, just like the timing wise of trying to get the HVAC grant doesn't line up for the budget. It's really hard. But the key to me, again, comes back to not your operating budget on an annual basis. Your operating budget on your annual basis should be your preventative maintenance program. It should be your MCOR going back in and going, we replaced every air filter in here. We replaced this, we checked this, did the, redid all the calibration on anything that had air pressure. We did all that. CIP is your portion that should be your big ticket items. If you're going to replace things, it doesn't fall in your Board of Ed budget.
That makes sense. I'm surprised to not see.
It's always been small, yeah, it's small stuff.
I'm surprised to not see anything.
Yeah, it's there, but you just you don't see it. And where I could show you is I could go back through and print out a report for you in prior years and go, you wanna know how I paid for things in the past where these repairs come up? We don't just say no and not do them. We do them, we just find ways, and that's why when we make transfers at the end of the year, there's a program that's, and actually, I think I can show you one.
And I mean, it would be nice. And I know the timing is hard, but I mean.
Look at building maintenance right there, that's program, oh, you can't see it because it's not there. How's that going? This is a prime example. Look at building maintenance right here, this is center school, look at 22-23.
Yeah,
$109,000.
yeah,
We did a boatload of projects because we had money.
right.
So when I have funds, those are the things that how I have attacked that over the last 4 or 5 years. Long-term planning, that's not good. That's just, let's take
Right.
care of the fires because there's several dumpster fires going on. We're trying to put them out.
I mean, I guess we don't know till the end of the year, but what I was trying to say in the last meeting is it would be nice instead of returning these hundreds of thousands of dollars to the general fund, and you say that, well, now it goes into when they wanna offset, the budget or whatever, but to me, and maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, it seems like from what's funding our budget, it's a wash, because we're giving this back and then we're asking for an increase the next year. That, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, whatever we're giving back, we're kind of asking for in an increase the next year, so it's like giving to Peter and then taking from him to give back to us. Seems like we're always a wash. Or am I interpreting this wrong?
I understand what you're saying, but it's not a wash, cause I start from zero. I don't start from like the last year's budget, like from the current 23-24 budget, I don't go, okay, 3% increase, here's your new number.
No, but I mean, like you say, okay, well, yeah, we asked to transfer to the non-lapsing fund, which is fine, but then the rest that's returned to the general budget. For example, let's look at 22-23. We returned 114,328 to the general budget, right? Then our budget is always based on the previous year's approved budget, not the encumbered budget.
The increase.
So, right, the
Yeah.
increase. So our increase was little less, around half of what we returned the previous year.
Mhm.
You know what I'm trying to say? So yes, this money that we're returning to the general fund, when the Board of Finance wants to, they can take however many millions of dollars from the general fund to offset the overall budget for the whole town. So yeah, we're kind of saving on taxes, but we're asking for an increase again anyways. I don't know if I'm wording it right.
you're
Does
saying
anyone
keep it-
understand what I'm
keep it in
trying to
use?
say?
Keep it and use it.
But then
That
he
way
says that we couldn't because it's in the end of the year and you have to use it within that time.
Right, okay.
So, and we never know what we're
And
gonna
we're
have
maxed
left.
out our non-lapse, typically.
I hate that.
We typically max out our non-lapsing account. You can use your
I
non-lapsing.
know, I'm
account
not
for
talking
10.
about the non-lapsing,
So
I'm
that
talking
means
about
that-
everything we're returning to the general
Doesn't.
fund.
There's no other account that your Board of Education can do.
I have a suggestion. When, what is it, Q? Thank you. When they make their report,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden we get this great big huge number that it's gonna cost us to repair our schools and try to bring them up to par. Maybe that might be a time to ask to keep some of that money and apply it towards some of our.
But that you need to have, it's either in your operating budget, it's in your non-lapsing account, or it's in your capital.
Why
That's it. There's no other Board of Education controlled account. The Board of Finance could say, we're gonna create a town account, then just start dropping money in for fire department buildings and for, Board of Ed. It would not be Board of Ed funds. It would be town funds. It would be out of your general fund. That already exists. So it's just a matter of how much money you need to get the repairs done. That's what and I understand, like, you can't. The projects that I've done, we have gotten done by, we've pushed our luck beyond July 1st, like. But that's what,
So do you think that having a facilities manager could help us organize and prepare so that the following year we would have used it rather than returning?
Perhaps, but my other
No.
question,
sorry, I'm gonna say no. No, because as a superintendent, I'm gonna say absolutely not. If you spend that money and then something happens in May 1st as a board, you're responsible to operate within your budget. And if you've already spent it, I don't have a job. You're
I
gonna say,
understand that.
yeah, I would be very cautious of that. That's why we wait very late in the year. I already have my list of projects. It's ready to go, and I'm like, okay. We're in a safe zone, spend 30,000. The first list. Second list is in the 20. We're May 15th, we're getting close, we're safe, spend another 20. That's how I approve projects. So it's really the capital money, the $1 million, the bonding. You could bond $5 million for the town. And they could say 3 million is gonna be for Board of Ed and 2 million is gonna be for fire departments. I'm making this up. And as you want to, you apply your CIP stuff, as you go through projects, that's the money you would go to. And every time you wanted to have a project approved, you would just go to town meeting and then you would do it. The money's there. It doesn't impact your operating budget. It doesn't impact your non-lapsing. It doesn't impact the general, well, it doesn't impact general fund, but.
My question, if I may, is it possible, so the townspeople have approved this budget for us this is what they agreed to spend on.
Correct.
23, we had 114 left over that we returned to the general fund. Do we have to return it to the general fund? Can we not earmark it in CIP for Board of Ed for later use since it's already in our Board of Ed approved budget?
You could request it, but they'd have to approve it. And honestly, that's what they do. When they increase it goes into the general fund. And then when they say, hey, we're gonna increase the the CIP list next year, they get that money from somewhere. It's not all taxed.
Okay,
So they take that 114 and honestly, that's where a lot of it goes. It's either you're offsetting the next year's budget, the taxes, or you're applying it to the capital projects.
okay.
The reason they went from $550,000 in 1 year and then were able to do a big jump is because their general fund was healthy. It was in the 14% range. It was a couple $1 million, I think. And they could apply funds back to increase CIP for that 1 year. That's how it works.
And I'm sorry if this is frustrating.
No,
you,
no.
and You're going in
It's
circles,
great
but like,
questions.
looking at these numbers, you could see how the average person who doesn't pay attention is like,
Yes.
hey, you have around $600,000 here that you have not used from your budgets over the past 5 years.
The rules that you have to.
Why are you asking? You don't have any money, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
if you don't know, if you don't understand how it works, which a lot of people don't,
Correct.
I am still learning, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, and I was taking minutes for the Board of Finance for a year and a half, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm writing or how this works.
Yeah.
But I'm just, that's why I'm like beating a dead horse, trying to understand how this process works, and maybe somebody's listening and they're like, oh, I didn't know, like, that makes sense, okay, you know what I mean?
the,
And just trying to be like, well, like, have anyone thought of this? Could we do this? Could we do that? Blah, 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 you know what I mean? But it seems it's a lot harder than I thought.
it is, because you're
It's-
locked into a
Yeah.
time frame and your operating budget. On the
Right.
CIP side, you kind of locked into a time frame, but if you put it in the right account, it just can roll year to year and you just keep drawing on it as you do projects.
Right,
And that's how a bond works, right? You're just paying the bond, the money's there. Years ago, there was a superintendent who was, I will say, not so well liked in this district. Because they would spend, and I'm talking from a budget standpoint, they would spend this down to basically nothing, many years ago. And got their, wrist slapped by the Board of Finance, like, hey, you had, in your budget, and this is why I'm so transparent about when I do my monthly budget reports, and I say, there's a reason there's $300,000 in there, it's gonna be spent, because I don't want you to think that when you look at our budget reports, that we're over budgeting. There is no fluff in this budget. None. Like, we had a teacher, resign out of hall school recently, and I was like, I just got back $20,000. That's nothing in a $9 million budget, but I'm celebrating $20,000 because we're in such a. It doesn't, there's no other, people say there's like this slush, it doesn't exist. Your slush is your non-lapsable, it doesn't exist. So
so basically, we're stuck with any maintenance.
you
going through
have,
here.
yes, and you have to well, as long as the money's there, we have to advocate. If you're gonna advocate as a board, and this is why I'm gonna go upstairs tonight. Is the amount of money they put into CIP for next year is super critical. Cause none of those projects are gonna happen, none of them. The only thing that's gonna happen is gonna be the roof projects. You're gonna miss the opportunity for solar. You're not gonna be able to put an HVAC grant, cause you don't have the local funds to support it. For me to say, yes, we have the local funds. It has to be a minimum of $1.5 million, and that's gonna make some people cough. That's where you have to advocate as a board, and when I say a minimum, that's what I'm
Yeah,
advocating
but we
for.
can't keep going in circles, and people.
If they say no, that's all you can do. The only other option you can do, Sam, is if they say no from the CIP side, the only other option you have is to put it in your operating budget and spend it within that year. Once you get it, and you're gonna see, you're gonna say, hey, you didn't pass it, I'm gonna try and put a 10% increase in the budget.
Yeah.
And the 10% increase is, 5% of it is about $450,000, and we're just gonna apply that to our own capital projects ourselves each year.
Now,
Mhm.
if they approve the 1.5 tonight, can we do the solar? Can we do the HVAC?
I can't answer the HVAC, but I have a strong belief that, can I just run by all this really quick? So we'll help you.
Okay, we're gonna swing back to you, Jen, in the committee. I was just gonna say that, I think Bill has a good handle on where we are, what we need, and the history of things. I believe that. And we work together to make those kinds of decisions. The only thing I was thinking along the same lines of what, you had said was, does it make a difference coming from a facility manager's mouth instead of ours?
Well, I think the working group, which is what I like to call it, the working group would consist of a small group of us doing the bulk of kind of prognosticating out and then bringing it to this bigger group and saying, okay, what are we gonna do with this information? Like, how do we present this in a way that makes sense? Because if we were just deciding it on our own, I think we could just do what we wanted, but we have to balance. How can we get the other committees to agree to this budget while it's still the best thing possible for, the kids and the schools? And I'm not sure, I don't have a lot of, I don't have confidence that we could do that without doing the
Advocates.
legwork.
Do you mean other boards?
Yeah.
Which is why I think some people strongly think that we should share a facilities manager for the whole entire town, because that was something I heard during the vote for the new school, was that it was hard for people to take that big leap, take that big bite, like you were saying, because they know there's other buildings that need other things.
Yeah.
So there's an argument for that, I think, knowing the big picture, but then again, then we're sharing that person.
Right, and if the argument is that we could have one person for the town, and one person for the schools, I highly doubt that's ever gonna happen.
No, but it's.
And if there's a need for both of the positions, then it seems pretty clear that sharing one position is probably not sufficient. Like, it's a start for
Yeah.
sure, but anyway. that's
Let me
what I
show
would
you.
like.
So this is what, and sorry, it's small. This is what I'm gonna address tonight, if I can get up there. But you talked about the 1.5 million, this is the reality, like, you wanna know where we're at and what we can fix, right? So in this, again, we're, agenda wise, this fits into your overall picture of what's operation maintenance look like. I just took your priority projects. We are pretty solid, we believe, on the ballpark roof replacement cost. This 306 is the cost of the town after the grant. The solar panels, we think, is about $500,000 for CES. That's grant funded if you do it at the same time. Cost is 180. The chimneys is still 80, you can't change that, it's not, you don't get the reimbursement. I put the reimbursement on the HVAC. If you get the HVAC grant, you get the money. If you don't get the HVAC grant, that's full 75. The roof will cost the local folks $432,000. The solar panels for Hall, 180. That, before ventilation, is $3.2 million. In projects, the cost of the town is 1.2 with grants. Now, there's no buffer in there. So like a contingency of 10%, 3%, 5%, doesn't exist, it's not in there. If those HVAC things come back, evaluations, and you don't get the grant, the HVAC grant, and you put another 100,000 in there, there's no buffer. Now, here's the thing, this is what I'm gonna show. The CES ventilation, we have in their CIP plan is 200,000, because we had to throw a number in. What I need to tell them is, you're dreaming if you think it's gonna cost 200,000. We just put a draft number in because we don't know. We're waiting for QA&M, and we have to do an HVAC study. So I put $1 million in for CES and 2 million in for Hall. And here's the breakout of the cost, 360,000 after the grant, 721. Now your new total is 2.3 million. Well, you know QA&M is doing the facility study. You currently have $1 million, a little bit less than $1 million in the Board of Ed approved projects. That money's sitting there now. That's not gonna cover. You need another 1.3 minimum, including the HVAC. Now, here's the kick in the shin, right? 6393 is gonna continue to go down. That's your reimbursement rate. We pay that small share, 36.0%, 0.7%, right? To apply for a grant, I have to check a box and I have to show them the vote from the town meeting saying the town approves this, okay? Well, here's the grants, the HVAC grants from round 1, 2022. Those are the only ones that are out. The average ventilation grant project costs $2.1 million. There were 50 grants that were awarded. Before reimbursement, they range from 1,200 to 17 million. Guys, the 1,200, someone bought an air purifier. That is not an HVAC grant. So when you look at these right here, these are the ranges of the grants that were approved. There were 6 that were under 10 grand. I would say 4 of those were under $3,000, okay? 8 of them were 250 to $1 million. The remainder, $1 million plus. Look at the numbers. You know. You've got 23, you've got 32 projects right there. that are $1 million plus each out of the 50. This 1 million and 2 million, this is what I had a conversation with Donna about today, and I'm gonna tell them. You can put another 1 million in there, they can just do 1 million like they did last year, it's not enough money. You can put 1.5 in, and it might not be enough money. The HVAC study, the Coventry's grant was 16, their project was $16 million. Before reimbursement. One school. They don't have a 100-year-old building. The reality of this, of 1 million and $2 million. Here's the, and this is the, not to be dramatic. There's legislation that's gonna be out there that the buildings have to be between 68 and 80 degrees. So when it gets hot and we don't have AC, we have to close.
That's it. Cause our classroom has gotten, yeah,
We start the day at 79.
on the upstairs room.
At Hall School.
You showed us that last year.
Yes.
When is that happening?
It's legislation that's gonna happen in the next couple of years.
Can't
And
say those
it's-
again.
Yeah, that's. in-
I believe it's 68 to 80 degrees is the range that I have heard. And this is all part of the fresh air HVAC kind of thing approach. The grant is really important. So again, my point is, I wrote 1 million and 2 million, and some people are gonna go, oh my gosh, $1 million for center school ventilation and 2 million for hall. It could be 5 and 10. It could be 10 and 15.
And we could lose a lot of instructional time if that legislation goes through.
That's my point. And if you don't do it through the HVAC grant, which supposedly is gonna dry up, I think we'll see what happens on that. If it dries up and you can't apply for it, so let's just lay this out real quick. If I do the HVAC study, which I'm gonna bring to you sooner than later, I'm gonna ask for the funds for that out of the 1 million. I'm gonna have to put out an RFP, I'm gonna have to do a study with engineering. What do you suggest? What is it gonna cost? You get the dollar amount. If it's over that, you have to bond. You will lose out on, and you have to be very careful because the state kicks in money on the roof projects. The number of meetings we had and time we spent when we caught one hole in the center school roof to make sure we maintained our roof warranty. Do a whole HVAC system. You have to maintain your warranty, and if you don't, guess what? You gotta pay your roof project back.
When you talk about HVAC, does that include air conditioning?
It does.
Heat and air
Well, I don't know that
That
$1 or $2
number-
million is gonna cover it, but that's why I need to get upstairs to try and. I don't wanna go through all the projects with them at this point in time, but I need to explain to them, like, this is your bulk priority. And I can't apply for an HVAC grant if you don't have the funding. If you want me to hold off on the roofs. Why would you you could do the HVAC first on an old roof. And she's shaking her head, because I agree, that'd be silly, you should do them all at once. And you should do it so that they're coordinated. If you drop the solar panels, that's not the end of the world, you just will never be able to put the solar panels on the roof, except for 20 years from now. Cause you lose your grant, you lose your warranty. You could do ground solar panels, but you could not do roof. And by the way, if you do ground ones, you won't get reimbursement. This is the stuff like people
Not the
understand,
warranty or like or the roof warranty would be like a multi-year warranty.
it's a 20-year warranty. But they like literally, Firestone came out and inspected 3 times. When they wanted to know what we were gonna do. They were there when we did it, I think, and then they inspected afterwards, and we had covered over a event. And then during COVID, we were told we didn't need it. Our prior employee covered over it, and then COVID hit, and we said, well, that doesn't go anywhere. MCOR was like, I'm not sure what happened, guys, but this vent doesn't go out, there's no fresh air intake here. We had to go and cut that hole, and that's where Firestone had to come out, and they had to guarantee, and that's what we have documentation to maintain our 20-year warranty. You need that to keep your money.
Can you say one more time, the year when we went through all that roof stuff and it was approved? When were we set to have that roof done in the first place?
The calendar.
There was
I
a
keep
lot
this
of work.
online, I keep this online intentionally, because
There's,
I'm
okay,
taking
there
so
were
much
a
heat
lot of
about it.
grants done, there were a lot of projects done, a lot of studies done to determine that both schools needed new roofs. The town approved it, it went to OSCGR, the project was ready to roll. And then was revoked by the state because they found out that we had formed a school building committee. It would no longer stand behind what they had said. What year was that?
This is the whole timeline.
Right.
So from 2019, where all this stuff happened,
Mhm.
and it went all the way through.
Right.
I mean,
so-
we had done all the work for it.
So in 2019, it was set in motion.
Yeah.
And then
COVID hit.
from no fault of our own, just because we assembled a committee to think about how we could improve, renovate, change,
That was 21.
whatever our schools, they revoked it. So now we're back, not completely to square one. Because some of the work is still valid, right?
Some of the work is definitely valid. I mean, if there's any new code changes, which if they are, they're minor, the drawings probably won't change any.
Mhm.
It is. You just wanna do it at the same time. It's gonna cost us some more money to make sure we get the application right and have the right documentation. That's built into your amount though.
Mhm.
But the point is I think the point is, it's your capital budget is where you're going to have to really address these big issues. If it doesn't, listen, it's like, I'm kind of checking boxes, right? New school failed, it wasn't, in the palette of people. Okay, so next step is facility study, you're gonna see what it's gonna cost, let's start fixing things, and when they say no at town meeting, you know what the next step is? Put it in this board, and if they say no, don't complain about your leaky roofs.
Right.
Don't complain when people don't move into Willington and everybody moves out because your schools are falling apart. I mean, that's the reality of, like, going down the ladder and the steps, like, we're trying to figure out which rung we can get the most for and, you know, do the most work.
I think we have support for the roofs, if I've not.
No question,
Interpreted the.
no
policy.
question, but
Yeah.
the roof projects are one of the puzzle pieces now in
Right.
the several things
Yeah.
of the HVAC, of the,
Right.
yeah, so. Do you wanna, run through program 9? What's your,
Yes, I
Yeah,
just
'cause
was
I
gonna
don't
round
think
us
so, too.
back around to how we even got here, talking about roofs.
well, we were on, I mean, it's
Because
the,
we were discussing CIP projects. and
Program
that
8
is
is
a
on-
part of program 8 is what
Cut.
those folks do.
the concept of
That's how we
operations
got
and maintenance, and that's probably where you would put, definitely where you would put a facilities manager. Even though they were, they'd be district wide, this is where I would put that person.
And so the topic of facility manager is on hold while we wait for a response from the board of selectmen,
Yeah.
and then we'll.
And I can ask, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I put an $80,000 price tag on it, I don't know if that's
No.
even in the range. Some of those people could be making 140, I don't know.
Fine.
Okay,
Okay,
let me share my screen again and get to program 9.
system-wide support.
Yes. So this is like a little bit of a hodgepodge, there's a variety of items that you need to run a school district, a lot of them fall into this. There's the, technology services, you've got magnet school tuition, you've got legal fees, school security, it's a whole boat of different things. I'm in here, my administrative assistant's in here, remember, she's 1.0, the other 0.15 hers in a different budget. It's in transportation. We did move the sub-collar into this. Sub-collar was in program 2 in Hall School for some reason. I didn't like it there, didn't belong there. So it's now here and it's in the dollar range. So when you see the jump in the, or not jump, the new line district-wide salary sub-collar, it's there. Okay? We have a lot of purchase services, and I'm gonna be honest with you, when I came here, this was the hardest item to wrangle and get a good grasp on where we were at and what we needed and what, like, people would say, oh, I need to renew my subscription, there was no budget for it. So we have this down to a rocket science, to a T. So when I go through this, the magnet school tuition has come down because we have fewer kids next year, we're expecting, based upon grade and kids returning. We've had several kids return. That's a good thing. The teacher retirement valuation is every 2 years. We actually prepaid something last year, I believe it was, so next year's only the 1,900, that's what we have to do. It's mandated, it's an actuarial evaluation, it's just annoying that we have to do it, and it costs a lot of money. Next year's the cheaper version.
What is it?
So. I'm gonna give you.
Like fiduciary service.
It is, it's to determine it's actually tied to the liability of having your retirees, which you have to have through your contract on your insurance plan.
Okay.
And they're retired, they're gonna be on your insurance plan and it's on your, you know, compared to your active teacher policy, it's really interesting. It's
Okay.
mandatory, you have to do it every 2 years. And Don, every year, this is like the Siemens thing, every year I hear like this cry, like, oh, we have to add that back in. So it's cheap next year. Legal fees, I kept the same, we have several negotiations, and as long as we stay with the same attorney and the same similar rates, her rates are very reasonable. You go to a bigger firm, you're gonna pay a lot more money, and that wouldn't be enough. That is my copier lease and maintenance, it is minimal, obviously that is just, probably wouldn't even be a service fee. If a service charge, if we had somebody come out, it would be more than that. It's just what we put in, we've survived with and we've made it work. The IT on the Microsoft licenses, for my IT guys, this is like the VMware, Clever ID. We've got a DigiCert, SSL certificate. We've got backup services here. We've got your Microsoft licenses here. You've got your Google Workspace licenses here. Our Sonic Wall, security appliances here. We put these all into that one line, and what I did was, we had listed these out in a different spot, and we lumped them this year by what made sense, so there's not a $6,000 increase, even though it looks like there is. It just happens to be where we group them together. You can see at the bottom in the subtotal, it's only $1,000 increase, if you see that, the 232 to 233. The IT support, Novus, that is 5 days a week on site, one person on site, that's our IT firm. We are where we are because of the work that they've done, I would really, leave that alone, and that is their minimal increase, the town pays their portion, and that's a shared service. The cybersecurity monitoring services, again, that's part of what we need for our insurance. We pay that, and it's actually keeping us safe. I just read a huge article the other day about the number of public schools that are being attacked through cyber attacks and how much money they are paying in ransom. Big business. We are, in, I will say, reasonably good shape for that. School messenger is how we, get our messages out to the public, the school community. And they also do our website, so that's the next line down. Power School's in both here and it's in the school ones. The school side of it is the actual program. This side of it is because instead of us hosting it on a server and a rack over there that we have to keep that server up to date, they host it for us. We've determined it's significantly safer, significantly cheaper. They're responsible for bringing it back if there's ever any failures. So they host our Power School and security certificate. The iReady is our iReady testing, and the toolbox, there's teacher tools there for intervention. That's the next line down. You've got the district-wide academic subscriptions, Newsy LA. That came down a little bit because we dropped a subscription that we did not need any longer because of some curriculum updates. So when I say we don't just roll things over from year to year, I mean it. We go through each of those items. The next line down is our Raptor system. That's when someone walks into our office and we don't know them, they're gonna be in our buildings, they scan their license to see if there's any it's a background, it's a very speedy background check. Walked in this morning to one at Hall School, they were running. The telephone service is a shared service, that's between the town and the schools. The internet service you see went up. We watched our usage and we were using more power, we needed more power, so we went up a little bit. That's the increase. Postage is the same. The board clerk is the same. The to teach English language learners has been, we just take it out of our regular supplies now. It used to be a program, we don't pay for a program anymore. So we just take it out of, it's not budgeted. Next year, you won't even see that line. Then you've got the 504 stuff. If someone doesn't qualify for special education, but they need accommodations, you still have to provide those things. So like phonic ear, the things that amplify sound in classrooms, things like that. So there's some money in here for both of those things. We dropped it last year. We've done okay with the money. You can see that 1,900 to 700, 700 again, the 1,250 to 500, 500 again. It works. We're within that range. The public safety officers, they come in teams of 2 for things like our promotion ceremony, our big plays, anywhere where we have a huge public school-based event. We bring in our local fire folks. Someone faints, you want personnel on site. We have defibrillators in the gym. You want them on site if you ever have to use those things. They help us with parking. If there's anyone who's belligerent, they have a direct line to the state police. Like, there's reasons that they're there, and we pay for that fee that's in there. The CPI training I took out. It's now PMT. It's actually in special education. Actually, no, I think I put it either in special education or the program 6 in the professional development. I just felt like it's professional development. It was in the wrong line, wrong program. I moved it. Amazon Prime, we have a district subscription now. It didn't exist before. That's new. I found out we were sharing the same password across multiple users. Bad practice. Novus didn't like that at all. So you were very likely to be hacked with that. And so once we found that out, like every office was using the same one. We have a business subscription now. Everybody has their own passwords. It is the right way to do business, and you can track your purchases significantly safer. The Zoom is shared. It's a town service. It's in there. And then the E-rate consulting is, we get some E-rate funds that, every now and then we get $30,000 or $40,000 for projects. Only certain things apply. We recently got a lot of money from them. The next cycle's coming through and we have to report out to the government on it. Years ago, Brenda went to Washington DC to do the training, and we figured out it would cost so much money just to have her try and figure it out. It was way cheaper to just pay a company to do this. So we pay a company to maintain our E-rate and make sure we have our federal documents in line and everything is submitted on time so we don't risk our funding. So those are all the purchase services. We have minor supplies for Board of Ed, minor supplies for Superintendent's Office, and then your dues. You've got Cave and Casbo, my dues under the superintendent, your EastCon CT Reap and Cast. We dropped one out because we weren't using it, and so I don't believe in budgeting for something just to save the money, keep the money in there. The Conference Board of Education is 2,000. It's probably a little bit low when people go to the conference, but we feel like it's okay. And then mine is contractual under superintendent conference and travel. So you've got a $6,000 offset in here for REAP. And so your increase is 2.97%, 463,000 to 477.
Bill, do we use
Again,
Send for our
sorry,
internet?
Send, yes.
What
See.
speeds are we getting?
Oh, you're gonna ask me that?
Ah,
I can tell you that, but I don't wanna say the wrong number off the top of my
no,
head.
just email me sometime. I was curious.
What do you think we should be getting?
I mean, where I work, we run 10 gig, but this district, we don't need that. I would assume 5 or 2.
I think we just went to 5.
Okay, yeah, that'd be plenty.
I think we were at 1 and we were at 1 and we just increased. I can tell you the exact number though.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing about, again, program and dollars. Show me money on this where you can cut without significant impact. You need a super student operating system. It's gotta be somewhere. It's gotta be hosted. You need cybersecurity. You need to have people scanned when they come into your buildings. I don't know where you cut. And if you do, it's not a lot of money in this.
Looking at all this, all these prices are pretty bare, they're low comparatively. I know some places for Microsoft licenses alone are paying $50,000.
Correct. Yeah, and we pay per student on our licenses. If you were to have, the Novus team that we have, if you were to have an IT team here with a server person, a tech to fix problems, I mean, you're easily over $300,000-400,000, easily.
Is there anything else anybody wanted to comment or ask about program 9? Okay. Adjustments, did we already discuss that?
We kind of did, unless you have other adjustments,
I think we're on hold with the,
yeah, and I guess if there's, for me, are there any unknowns that I haven't heard yet? I told you what I think a good number. If you were gonna do that, Arthur had mentioned special ed, I can put a number on that, that's probably 95. With benefits, 95,000, and I say that because I'm going middle of the road, a $60,000, $65,000 salary. And family benefits is 27. So when you hit the 90 range, you're adding another percent to your budget. That's about what you would have. So I don't know if there's other things. You know, I'm hopeful on the insurance that we'll see some decrease there. I don't have anything else in my hopper right now where I'm like, ooh, I could try and, I'm, looking at negotiating contracts. I have nothing. I don't have anything.
okay.
So should we, because you're asking, first selectman about possibly sharing a facilities manager, should we have you actually make, and I want to add work to what you've already done, because you spent a ton of time on this, but should we, there's not a lot of time here, if we meet on February 13th at 6 o'clock, if we don't have numbers, we can't vote to put that in the budget, or you'd have to be running them right then.
Yeah.
And then the next meeting is just a few weeks later, so you're gonna do that work
Yeah.
anyway. I kind of got lost in the discussion.
The things in the beginning, so like the retirement, the cyber insurance, the ARPSR, those are gonna happen. I'm gonna run those already. I kind of see that as, even though it's my proposed budget, I'm just kind of saying, you're gonna suggest making those changes, right? Why would you not? So that becomes your budget then when you do that. I will then have that 494 percentage increase. And then from there, I'll say, now that's our new baseline. What do you want to do now? If you wanted to add another special ed teacher, that was one of the things that was thrown out. I would add $90,000 to the budget. That's what Donna and I would do. We would go middle of the road, a master's, step 5, plus family benefits, because that's typically what we would get. That's a percent. So you'd now be at 594. And then the other thing would be the facilities director, and I would shoot higher on that one. I'd go 80 plus 30. And I'd say you're adding another percent plus. And I can have those numbers prepped for you. And I'll do a little bit more research just to see if 80 is in the ballpark. I don't know. If you shared it and it was 40, or it was 55 because it was, benefits included, you determine if it's reasonable or not.
If we're having a conversation about adding a special ed teacher, is it worthwhile to have Marcia here for that conversation?
Yeah, I absolutely would if it's gonna come up, yes.
Okay. So this February 13th budget meeting was like a maybe, but it sounds to me rather necessary. Yeah,
If you're gonna approve your number that night, absolutely.
yes, okay,
So at 6, right?
yes,
Yeah.
Tuesday, February 13th at 6 p.m. And then our regular meeting is at 7. Hopefully we'll be done. So we're not late to our own meeting.
Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll try and make sure if Donna can attend, to make sure if there's something that's quirky in there, what I'm gonna ask is if you have anything else before then, you've gotta let me know, because I don't wanna do numbers that night, have you approve a number and have it be off.
Okay, we'll have a new updated version.
Yep.
Okay.
And actually, I can send you the updated programs for the changes that are gonna happen right away. I wanted to make sure I got some head nods before I did that, and you know what the percentage would come down. I'll just take those things right out now. We'll do that tomorrow, and I'll update the programs. We'll probably send that out on Friday.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay. Good talk, good talk. All of the things. From roots to floors. I feel like we covered it all. Okay, so we have reached item 8, which is adjournment, so we just need a motion and a second.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, okay, our meeting is adjourned officially at
7:28.
7:28. Thank you.